Thank you very much. Now, when we talk about wind energy, we often talk in megawatts, in megawatt hours, but industries speak a different language. Predictability, cost, risk, and long-term certainty. The real question today is not whether Latvia needs wind energy. This decision already has been taken. The question is whether wind energy can genuinely power industry, investment, and competitiveness in Latvia. We will be looking at how well our energy ambitions are aligned with industrial reality and what concrete steps are to be taken to make wind energy an integral part of industrial operations and business in general in Latvia. And rest assured, with our distinguished panelists, representing policymakers, investment support, developers, and off-takers, we will succeed brilliantly, right? So let's dive in. Olga, my first question is to you. How would you describe the current situation? To what extent are energy and climate policies in Latvia truly integrated with industry or industrial development policies? And where do they still operate in parallel rather than together?
Yeah, well, thanks a lot for this very broad question. Definitely, if we speak about Latvia, Latvia is a country which doesn't produce any fossil energy sources, so any kind of CO2 decrease and decrease of fossil fuels definitely correlates directly with the climate policy. I think that's the first step. Another one is, well, we do have very ambitious climate goals, no doubt. The question is how we are moving towards them. Whether we are doing that in a smart way or we are doing that mechanically. And of course, it's a good balance or it's a trade-off between hypothetically decrease of fossil fuels. And what does it mean in practice? It means at a higher rate of greener resources. So it means we do have a lot of green resources here in Latvia. It means there is a wider use of the local resources, which is very good for economy, for industry, but at the same time, any kind of transition requires money, it's investment. In comparison to mature technologies, definitely it's a rise of cost. At the same time, it's a possibilities. The question is whether we as all society together, not only policymakers, but also industry, also municipalities, society, with their support, whether we manage to arrange that process in a way that we are not forced to push the decisions or to push the investments in an unhealthy, fast way, but at the same time to ensure the direction towards the transition to the cleaner and economically wise system in Latvia. So the perfect set, how we see it, and actually how many countries also manage to organize that. So we try to use in an efficient way the local resources. So we do not export some basic resources. If we speak about, for example, today is the topic of wind, renewable energy sources. We do not just produce to export that energy, but we use it as a basis to support industry. What Latvia needs is economic development, economic activity. And for that purpose, we need to find a good balance between the shift, because we do lack the economic activity here, but at the same time, not to make it too rough, just raising the costs, and then you cannot help industry anymore. You get the backwards effect. So just summing up, theoretically, hypothetically, and hopefully we are moving to that direction. There is absolutely a win-win situation in a bigger climate, well, I mean, not even bigger, we do have it already big enough, so with a climate transition, net zero, and support to economy, to industry, and of course we do have here, when we speak about industry, we are talking about the sustainable industry. So there shouldn't be any gap between that. But of course, there are some challenges, and we are going to talk about them today. And definitely, I will draw up some tricky points in this regard.
Thank you, Olga. Laura, now testing it from investors' side. So what do you hear at this point of time? Is energy becoming a deciding factor for investors coming to Latvia? And is renewable energy availability really a key factor for the investors who consider investments in Latvia currently?
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. Yes, well, every investment agency, that is state investment agency across the world, wants investors with projects that has high capex and labor intensive, which means that our target projects or companies are those that are energy intensive, which means that, yes, the energy availability is go or no-go criteria within welcoming one or another project in Latvia or in some other countries. So this is very, very crucial when we get into discussions with those companies. And of course, the ESG is still in the company's strategies and agendas. It is important, and it is a competitive aspect when we talk about Latvia and what Latvia can actually offer. Another thing, of course, is regarding the availability, the infrastructure location. And now we have developed a very nice map in Latvia where we have indicated 7 strategic locations where there is huge energy availability. There is land plots available for greenfield development for the investment project, so that the investor can already know where is all the infrastructure available, because yes, all the projects and all the decisions were needed yesterday and the infrastructure is needed tomorrow, and yeah, at some cases it's simply not possible. So we have to find this good match. But of course, energy is one of the critical criteria when we are talking with investors, because if we look at our portfolio, 60-70% of all the companies are quite energy intensive into their profiles, so it's critical for them.
But you refer to renewable energy now.
Yes, also because it goes like without saying. We offer them that yes, in Latvia we can provide renewable energy, and it is important for them to meet all those criteria and standards they have set within the company.
Thank you. Baiba, we heard Olga and Laura stating that the need is there. There is absolute clarity that businesses need to be powered by wind energy. You represent the development side. Now, of course, we have heard a lot about the challenges that slow down wind farm development. And these are pretty clear, but please elaborate a little bit more if you would like to. However, it is not just that. It is well known, actually, that in Latvia, PPA market is almost non-existent. And I would like you to elaborate more specifically on that. So why do we find ourselves in this situation? And as we heard from the government representatives, that all is well, investors are welcome, and we need this energy for business.
Yes, thanks for your question. And yeah, from one side, representatives from the ministry and agency stating that yes, there are the investors who are looking for green energy, but why there's no PPA in Latvia? We know one case in Latvia, but that's it. I would say it could be divided in several parts. Of course, what was talked all about today, about environment impact assessment, long process, but we know how to get until the finish. The grid connection, long process, but also we know how to get there. But actually, what I wanted to point out is a little bit different angle, where I see that state could help. As you know, and most probably our panel member also could support me, that normally PPA is between two parties, bilateral. Trader, BRP, and producer plus client. In Latvia, it's almost impossible because the small developers, also as my company, could become the trader, could become the BRP, but it's really costly. And we are lacking this BRP service in Latvia. We see that there is the player in the market with some kind of impact of state who could ensure it because of all the infrastructure that they have. But as you know, the state companies are doing what they are asked to do. So while there are no political willingness to do it, we are stuck in this situation. We would like to sign the PPAs, but we can't ensure BRP. So we need to wait until it will come into the market. And that's one of the reasons why this market is not open in Latvia yet.
And what about the potential off-takers? Do you see actually willingness, be it investors, local players, in general, businesses interested in PPAs? How do you feel this drive as a developer?
I would say it's not active market, but also we are in the stage when we have a lot of unknowns to be able to sign PPAs at this moment. But we hear that there is some players in market. We also signed one MOU for upcoming PPA. We just need to wait until the next stage to be able to sign this one. They are here. We just need to look after them and work more on this triangle PPAs.
Olga, Laura, maybe a brief reflection on what Baiba mentioned as issues to be solved.
Yes, I was telling about our companies that are in our portfolio, and really significant interest is also from the data centers. And from the data centers, their interest is to have a PPA agreement with a very good price, and how we can get to that sweet point or sweet spot where the developer and the company gets this price that all sides can agree on. And we were discussing also this morning that maybe we should have this third party or state coming in and minimizing these risks, so that otherwise we don't see how the developer in the existing situation can offer the price that the company is expecting. So we have this gap that we somehow need to fill, but definitely within our projects there is interest for having PPAs with good price.
Yeah, from my side, maybe I can reflect that actually. Well, there is probably something what I can disagree with, that there is no wish from the government to solve that. If you look how many issues the ministry have solved within the last 3 years, I mean, we are pioneers and absolute champions, but of course there are different directions, and I absolutely agree where we should continue working. One is clarity, and also Laura mentioned that map. The map showing where actually technically something is possible or not possible, take into account different aspects, grid, environment, different, and we are going further. We are also trying to match from the industry point of view, what are those, especially not just not abundant places, but what are the places which are particularly lucrative for industry, to give a hint. Together with Statistics Bureau. So this is one direction. It's a long way to go, but still. Another one, I would like to remind you that from investors' point of view, Latvia and actually all the Baltic states were a very specific region with a super high quality grid and frequency. After we synchronized with European and continental grids, that high quality of frequency and electricity here, you will not find anywhere in the world. Well, the blackouts, like in Spain, are not possible here. They are still going and plan to introduce synchronous condensers. We have 3 of them in Latvia. So the blackout, like in Berlin, is not possible here. So we have completely different approach in network. So we have very good basics. We have still free capacities. Show me another country having free capacities. So we have already done that homework, and it's absolutely competitive advantage for industry, for everyone who wants to join. So second aspect. The third one is, of course, a little bit more complicated. It's regulation. And this attitude from the municipalities, and we know a lot of them are blocking, and here we're also working, that the technical regulations proposing how low they can be, what about the noise and different kind of lighting and things like that, security issues, environment effects. So we are there. We are still working. There is some job to be done. And the third one you already referred to, this is a financial aspect, because there will be always a gap between consumption. Consumer wants to have low price. Generation wants to have high price because you want to go to bank and to get financing for that project, and the price is too low. You cannot do a business case. And PPA is something which helps to match all those two. In other case, everybody is looking at another one and nobody is doing anything. So PPA, I would say that actually our legal acts allow having PPAs. I mean, the basic legislation is there. Another case is how to make it functionally possible, and we are currently in the negotiation process, and there are also our partners who agreed to send different kind of proposals, and we know that there are very different approaches in different countries. So which one is best for Latvia, for us as a ministry, to facilitate? And this is a very tricky question. I think we can focus a little bit more on that during this discussion, because there are so many options. It's not like just PPA or not PPA. Yeah, so that long list of different aspects, which are very important. And we as a ministry don't want to eliminate something. We want to facilitate. And it's a very important point in drafting all that as a solution.
Thank you, Olga. And I think now is exactly the time to move to our guests, having vast experience in Nordics, in the UK. And I would like to ask Richard. So Laura already mentioned data centers. So please tell us about DCX Global's operations and your planned investment project in Latvia. And what are your expectations regarding renewable energy availability in Latvia?
Okay. Thank you, Evita, for the question. Hello, everybody, and thank you, WindWorks, for the invitation to DCX. So if I remember all the points of the questions, first of all, DCX, we're a new startup data center providing AI and hyperscale-ready facilities. The first flagship one will be in Latvia. That is the plan. It was selected after a 2-year process because of, one, the country, its attitude towards new business, its attitude towards, let's say, new commerce in the digital infrastructure space, data centers. And the key metric for us was always going to be the power and the source of that power and the renewable green grid, as we've discussed and are discussing. For us, when it comes to attracting an off-taker to consume our technology and our data centers, they care also about the renewable energy source of that power. It was mentioned earlier about ESG. It is a criteria for some of the big global hyperscalers. We all know who they are. The top 7, when they do a DD with us, it can be as much as an 18-month process to understand our credit worthiness, the country profile, the risks associated with the location, and obviously the cost of that power and the fluctuation in that power. So I could go on, but I won't. So the key thing for them is, and for us, is also, as we discussed and we're discussing, is the PPA. What can we get? What's the source behind that? And is it true green energy? And will it give us a sustainable, resilient connection, number one? And is the cost going to be something we can manage over a 15-year time horizon? So going back a little bit, when we, well, as we are engaging with our global investors, looking at large infrastructure projects north of €500 million, they care that, let's say, the cost of that energy isn't going to be too volatile. And that's why PPA is important, because it creates a symbiotic relationship with the utility provider to show long-term commitment over at least 5, if not 10, 15 years. And if we think logically about it, I know we're talking wind today, but any source of renewable energy, that 1 megawatt of wind-produced renewable energy, once converted and utilized in an enterprise like ourselves, a data center, does equate to some kind of use to a off-taker, whether it be a trading firm, an ed tech firm, an AI firm, someone doing fancy graphics, whatever the enterprise is that relies on our data center facility, contributes to GDP ultimately. So there's a true combination, a conversion there, I should say, to an economic impact for the country. In addition to that, we also have a symbiotic relationship with the local community. So we talk about, I know we're talking about renewable energy here, but we also think about our heat exchange reuse as well, to make sure that energy is then recycled back where possible into the local community with people like Riga Siltums we've spoken to. So we do think about everything, but the first fundamental point we've got to get over the line with our investors is the facility in a good location, safe location, and has renewable energy source for 15 years. That's the number one thing. I think we've as good as done that now. And hopefully today and after today, we will now go to a more formal process with all the different energy providers, utility firms, to say, can we now talk about a long-term arrangement to satisfy our source of power that is truly green and at a competitive price with little volatility.
Thank you very much. I would also like to ask you a question about the experience of the UK when it comes to corporate PPAs, because it has come actually one of the most mature markets in Europe in this regard. How would you say, what made that possible? And do you think that there are lessons to be learned by Latvia, which could be taken over?
Yeah, I'd say actually my experience has been quite limited in the UK because of the state of the project in the UK right now, but I'll give some context to that. So today we talked a lot about offshore wind capabilities through the Baltics, Finland, all the way down to Germany. And a site that we looked at, I'll say it because it's available online, it's in Norwich, near the Norfolk coast, near to Hornsea 3, the largest wind farm in the world. They're on Hornsea 3 is going to deliver 2.9 gigawatts in the next 1 to 2 years to the local area, on top of the existing, I think it's 2.5 gigawatts that's available now. So it's approximately, what, six or so gigawatts available to the market. Now, when we were looking at data center sites 3-4 years ago, just after COVID, in London, you'd be very hard-pressed to find a location to give the quantum of power we need for the data center. And not just that, in terms of finding a site, the second thing was, where's the available power in London? There's no power of material quantum in London until 2030. So what we found is that that tier one concentrated market in the Slough corridor, as it's called, started going further afield to Wales, for example, where there's examples of small modular reactors going up. So people are going where the power is now. We're seeing people move data centers to the power rather than bring the power to the data centers. So finishing off on the point, Hornsea 3 on the Norfolk coast, we're now seeing people saying, can we now talk about your site in Norwich? And we are going to have those conversations about PPAs. But it's a very mature market, to your point. It's very competitive with different utility providers. I won't preach to you about what you can learn from the UK, because I'm not that well equipped to answer that today. What I would say is that it is a very mature market, but you're more competitively priced here than in the UK, for sure.
Thank you. Olga, when hearing about the experiences elsewhere, and you yourself actually mentioned, that there, of course, we can learn a lot actually from many different experiences. So what are you currently looking into, for instance, when looking for the best solutions for Latvia, when it comes to PPAs and, similar models?
Yeah, well, if you look at a lot of different theoretical models, how PPAs can look like. So, of course, the investors will decide whether they're shorter or medium or long term, either they're base load or they're portfolio based. There are so many different aspects. Are there just virtual, or they're like with a direct connection? So there are so many different aspects which could affect the way how the state. So actually, the main challenge for us is to understand what is the scope of aspects for PPA where state should step in. Because as we know, the less state tries to regulate, the easier usually it is. So we should touch only where we have to touch. Otherwise, maybe not today, but after some years, we understand that there could be different kind of challenges with that. It's a question, chicken-egg question. On the one side, industry needs someone to tell something stricter, but at the same time, it could harm. For example, like we had a discussion now with regulation when there are like quotas for the municipalities for the renewable energy development. So the idea was to calm everyone down, that all the Latvia will be not covered with renewable energy sources. But at the same time, that kind of statement or some kind of hypothetical limits, they might be an obstacle for other partners stepping into the market to develop, because there are so many great ideas and PPA model they do develop non-stop. Actually, this is a combination of financial derivatives and something very classical. And for us, we are, I would say, in Latvia, on one hand, maybe we have a little bit like privileged situation because we do not have none of them. But at the same time, there are a lot of countries where PPAs already exist. So for us, at this point, before we draw something and try to fix in legislation, it's important to understand, and from industry, not from the room of the ministry, to understand, okay, what is that, what worked, and what is the minimum set to ensure from the governmental side.
Thank you. And we move on with Thor Magnus. My question to you is, based on your vast experience in Nordics and elsewhere, you have also projects in Latvia, active projects in Latvia. A little bit provocative question. So what appeals to you in Latvia? So how that decision was taken, and how would you describe competitive advantages, if any, Latvia has?
Thank you for that question, and I can say that it's not only the Riga Balsam that is attractive with Latvia, of course, so there's lots more. We have a portfolio in the Baltics, a larger portfolio in the Baltics and in Finland. One of our main positions is, of course, in Liepāja and Latvia, and that is, of course, because there's a lot of energy potential in that region. And I also think in Latvia in general, there's a lot of energy potential. My background, I'm actually relatively new to Latvia. I've worked a lot internationally in oil and gas for many years. But the last 6-7 years, I've worked with greener energy and hydrogen projects, ammonia projects in Norway. So I've worked a lot with Statnett and the national grid companies, the local grid companies in Norway, with Statkraft and other type of energy companies. And I think Norway is, of course, a hydropower-dominated country. It's also a very stable grid, with, I think, 98 to 100% green energy sources going into the grid. There's a very mature process of how to get access to the grid. Right now, there's a lot of competition to get access to the grid and to get grid capacity. So I think one of the challenges of Norway right now is to making sure that there's enough grid capacity and that there's enough power. I think in Latvia right now, there's a fantastic opportunity to develop a lot more energy and to take a really strong energy position in the Baltic region and in Northern Europe. And I think what is being said here about the challenges that we have or may not have, I think a lot of that will help to be dealt with not only with one party, but through collaboration and discussions. A lot of cooperation, working together to find the right solutions, I think is very important. So between the different companies in the value chain, so talking to Vindr, for instance, on power contracts, understanding how we can facilitate to best position to getting into wind contracts, for instance, so that we can facilitate for wind development is important. We also need to work well with regulation to make sure that we have sustainable regulation that supports industry development and supports society development. So I think that's very important. Our view is that we are very positive to what's happening in Latvia at the moment. We see a lot of support from the authorities, from politicians. There's a proactiveness here. There's an interest to develop more industry. So I think it's important that we continue to have that kind of spirit of moving forward that I experience, at least being here. And I think cooperation, that I want to mention, because that's something that I'm really eager about, that we try to facilitate for as much cooperation between companies and authorities as we can, because that's where the solutions are, in the interfaces. When we have challenges, we had an announcement earlier today on the Baltic Alliance. That's an example of how we try to bridge the gaps when the market is not mature yet, to find solutions between components in the value chain, from the producer to the market in Germany. So I think if we can do that broadly, I think that's very interesting. I think also when looking at one thing that we have noticed that we need to make sure that we work on is, of course, the funding part of the projects that we have going on in Latvia also. What we see is that the local banks are relatively small. The lending capacity is a bit limited. And we also see that the European banks, they have a relatively limited exposure to this part of Europe. So we need to work more on the communication, communicating the kind of the attractiveness around investment opportunity in this region, because that will also be important. And then one more thing, and that is that I always try to mention, and that is safety. So that when we develop the type of projects that we are going to develop forward, which are either wind projects or large-scale processing facilities, we need to make sure that we have both practices and industry culture and regulation that facilitates for both safety regulation, safety behavior. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I would also like to ask a question first to you, Thor, Magnus, but probably Richard and Baiba could join here as well. There is still significant political uncertainty when it comes to a green transition, both at the EU and also national level. How to even make long-term decisions under these circumstances, and how to be sure about them. And not even mentioning the current geopolitical situation. Thor, Magnus.
Okay, thank you. No, it's a very, I think it's a very important question, and it's in the core of many other things that we're working on right now. I think has been discussed through this debate also. I think, again, a bit back to cooperation, I think that's very important, because a lot of the uncertainty is also in the value chain. If you're not in the value chain, it's between industry and regulation. And then you find uncertainty that is a bit difficult to control. And that's kind of the geopolitical side, which is maybe more turbulent now than it has been earlier. But I think if we can bridge the different components of what we're trying to do here with collaboration, trying to do agreements through the value chain, have predictable regulation, predictable policies, predictable communication by authorities, I think that's important, because then you have a basis for investment where you have predictability in cash flow going forward. Because we will always have to look at bankability as kind of the ultimate, what I say. If we don't get to bankability in projects, you don't have a project, you don't have industry development. And therefore you need to have kind of bridge these things. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, Baiba?
I think, as I mentioned before about investment, it's a very challenging environment to raise money, for any project, regardless of the nature of our business. What Thor Magnus just said there about the value chain, we dealt with that last March and April when the current administration in the US decided to put tariffs on everything and create uncertainty and chaos in the marketplace. And luckily, everybody's in the same boat, regardless of industry, as I said, to address that question. So we addressed that point and highlighted that we can procure from other places impacted by the designated regions or jurisdictions hit by those alleged tariffs. You said not to mention it, but I will mention it because it's to be talked about. This location is a challenging one and has been a challenging one to get investors to get their heads around. And in each case, I think of the 17 investors I spoke to the last 2 years, not one said no. They all accepted the fact for all the stuff we know about Latvia, the Baltics, NATO state, they got their heads around that and understood, even though there was no large hyperscale data center presence here, they understood from our representation 2 years ago, it was going to come, and we're here. You may have heard earlier, Laura talked about, and in other panels as well, the big names are sniffing around for energy, the Amazons in particular, and Google as well. So that's a very positive sign for this space. I've also highlighted in other conversations today, I spent, of the last 5 years, every year at least 3 to 4 months in Dubai. And what's happening in the GCC right now, with the questions we handled in the DD process with all these firms, some of them are very large tier 1 banks in Germany, for example, without naming them, you can guess who it is. They were very specific about how we're going to handle security at our site for a data center because it is critical national infrastructure. So the threat to the Baltics of the drone wall bordering Russia dealt with that 2 years ago. It's a very different story in the GCC right now when you've actually got drones hitting data centers in facilities in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Dubai. So it's created more issues, but luckily people are going, the reality is the NATO alliance will be strong enough, resilient enough to handle that scenario. It should be a deterrent, and we're now progressing with, let's say, I won't say final rounds, but we're leading towards final round decisions from those big lenders. They seem to be satisfied that the Baltics is a safe, Latvia in particular, a safe place to put their money. And also, I've talked about big institutions, private equity firms and family offices as well have the same sentiment. They've been encouraged to come and jump on a plane and be here rather than represent it from me and my team that come here on a semi-regular basis. But yeah, from a security perspective and an attitude towards the region, it remains positive.
Thank you. Baiba?
From developer side, I would say these times are really challenging, not boring at all, not boring at all. Not only about the security matters or something like this one, it's also about the legislative frame. You can just wake up after the Easter and recognize, maybe the law on which you're basing all your process, maybe it will be recalled. Let's see. But actually, how to pass the decisions? Firstly, you need to have a look on your risk appetite, measure it, and take a risk. If you are not ready to take a risk, you will not develop anything right now.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, Laura, please.
I could add also on this, because when we are talking with companies, investors across the globe, it's super important to repeat also from our politicians that we are taking seriously the resilience and the cybersecurity and all the things we are doing that the society and the people are not noticing, but it's huge, and we are super good at it. For example, the longest cyber attack to Latvia lasted for 1 year, and no one noticed because we are good at it. And these are our strengths that really secures also for the companies what they can expect, that we are really experienced here, and we cannot taken by surprise.
Yeah, thank you. Olga?
Yeah, well, I would like to continue what you mentioned about the stability, and here we could highlight two kind of stabilities, external and internal. Speaking about the European Union, of course, the course as such will continue because this climate philosophy comes together with self-sufficiency and economy. But what, to my mind, creates even a bigger challenge, not attracting even the new investors, but to ensure that those who already started to work with the projects actually can continue doing that. Speaking about several, like wind, we're talking about wind today, or any other projects which do have their business plans, they cannot move forward because our internal instability is not clear enough, because we do have society where the project developer didn't found the compromise with the local society to go on with that project. So here we haven't finished yet the homework with the existing those who are not somewhere but here, they already invested their time and resources in developing. So here, that's probably one of the highest priorities for us to resolve in a soonest time, because, well, if nothing is going on, if nothing is being developed, so no any sense to look at someone else and attract them. And actually, this is also the question of the general distrust, probably to the development, to any kind of new initiatives, and it's also the work of the public sector explaining. It is the bringing the evidence and truth through data. That's actually the homework also for the developers to offer to some good conditions to the society, to demonstrate what are their benefits. And we do have all these initiatives currently already started, but they have to not just be on a paper, they have to now have the big project La Flora, for example, which is going to be launched very soon, and then we will see first practical citizens living around, those who get some practical financial benefits out of that, and it will help us to decrease those worries and distrust of society. And this social distrust, it's a huge challenge, and you cannot resolve it like that. And I think it's something which goes probably above all the other challenges. And of course, financing, but at the same time, financing and financial attraction is a test how good the project or how good the business environment is. So before we resolve the business environment issues and some basic conditions issues, financing will not come, or those PPAs or other kind of supportive instrument, they will be expensive. So the first question still is something which technically allows. And of course, in the governmental side, we do have those conflicting policies. One policy said that there will be just environment reserve, in all the country. Another one said, no, we should do this and that, and we have to find a good balance of that. And it's a very complicated task.
Not boring at all.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Before we move to our concluding remarks or final round of comments, one question from Slido, and maybe there is a question or a couple of questions also in the audience. A little bit provocative one, but still, do you think Latvia objectively balances national climate policy goals and grid operator interests when making decisions that impact industries?
So whether there is a good balance?
Yeah.
Again, so target as such is not saying what kind of solution is there. If the solution is harming economy in case of Latvia, solution is silly, it should be deleted or, well, replaced, because targets are there and we cannot escape of them. If we okay, that's not real. Well, let's say energy sector. So we have fossil fuels. Well, now we have crisis with diesel, and the price is very high. So if we start at least partly replacing the diesel, benzene with the locally produced fossil fuels, so we get self-sufficiency, we get economy. That's win-win. This is smart solution, and the price will be lower. Or we start using electricity for cars. It's local, and it's below zero, could be below zero, it could be zero. Okay, during the winter, the price could be higher, but in general, for Latvia's situation, it's cost-efficient, economically based solution. So we should look for those. And we should also look for the solutions and the directions which bring benefits also in terms of production, of the local services and products, which are per se sustainable, because we have a lot of resources which are currently being exported without adding value. If we do that in a smart way, well, theoretically, these aims of the clean green aims, they are like they will be fulfilled, automatically. It's not that easy, as I'm saying, but definitely there is huge potential. We are currently not using. Just a very small last remark. The Minister of Climate and Energy is currently developing climate neutrality strategy for 2050. one of the biggest tasks there is not to get zero emissions in 2050, but to demonstrate GDP growth and working places. So industries which have the core of their business, net zero, using the resources we have here, bringing added value, and then as a cross-check indicator we have net zero. This is a correct approach for Latvia, and we will bring it for the public consultancy soon, coming soon.
Thank you. Any reflections on that? No? Any questions in the audience? If not, then the final round. Very briefly, probably impossible in one sentence, but still try to be brief. What must Latvia get right within the next 3 years to make it happen that wind energy powers businesses and industries in Latvia?
Now let's start. I heard really nice promises from the ministry, from agency. Let's keep these promises, and in upcoming year, let's make this legal framework with all needed aspects for ensuring the PPAs here.
Yeah, it is all recorded, so no worries about that. Thank you.
Yeah, the first and most important, I think, is to listen to the companies, what they expect, not to think something in a closed room where there are no entrepreneurs participating. And again, yes, to be reliable, not undersell, overpromise, but to be really specific in what we can offer and promise to the companies in the end.
Thank you. I think this is a very valid point, really, so that we don't go from green corridors to red corridors, which actually don't work, for instance. So not over-promising, but be real and reliable. Thor, Magnus?
Yeah, I think making sure that we cooperate a lot, really think is important, that goes across everyone that is involved in industry development, the companies, the local societies, the authorities, and everyone. I think that's very important. And keeping the kind of general interest in industry development in the country as it is today, which I think is very positive, and looking at kind of where we ultimately are going with being a central player in the Baltic Sea region when it comes to energy development.
Thank you.
I would probably repeat and highlight the word consequency. We do have a lot of ideas. The problem usually is that we are not doing, we're just talking, Lithuanians are doing, and we are discussing, right? So it's maybe we can do it slower, but still we should move forward and to be consequent enough not to rush from one angle to another one after each democratic cycle. Now elections are coming, not to have oh, I don't like that, let's start from scratch. So for us, it's possible to go this direction or that direction, but it's important to go and not to jump all the time, staying on the same level of development. So consequency, trust, and doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we've said it already, but I think the last point is clearly Latvia is open to businesses, is attracting them, as we've already discussed, in a very positive way. I come from the UK, 40 years experience in London. It's a very different story here, and it's very positive to see how positive it moves forward all the time. But when it comes to the wind power, renewable source energy, I think the consultation with large off-taker consumers, like data centers, is critical. Wind renewable energy is the foundation to that consumption and to the digital revolution that the data center provides to the local economy, as I said already. So that conversion from the megawatt creation of power from wind energy to GDP and how that's done, a data center can help facilitate that and accelerate that. And what goes with that, given the nature of a data center as a tier 3, which is the second highest level before tier 4, we have a 24/7 SLA with our big, large enterprises. So we need that power on all the time. And any downtime is a big penalty to us. So we need to consult with the producers, the energy producers, to say, how do we get a resilient power source to you, preferably by a PPA over a long period of time at a commercial competitive price and with little volatility, as I already said. That framework allows us to get lending that allows the consumption to be consumed from the energy producer. So that's my short update there.
Thank you very much. And what we hear is that we definitely need alignment and constant and continuous collaboration between all the involved parties. No one can't be left aside. And the question is clear: how we make wind energy strengthen Latvia's economy. Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the audience.